Let's just get straight into this. We're going to cover all things. We're going to get into journey, process, brand, and exciting things like the future. What was the moment where you were like, I'm going to be a hairdresser?
I mean, I think it's a funny story because I didn't grow up aspiring to be a hairstylist, and I didn't know that being a hairstylist was like an actual career path. And I think I've heard that a lot in this industry through like speaking with other artists. Like it arose in their life at the perfect time. And that's exactly what it did for me. My mom cut my hair in the kitchen with a sheet wrapped around my neck and kitchen scissors. So I just didn't think it was an actual career path. It wasn't until I actually met my now wife, but girlfriend at the time, 17 years ago. We met at a rock show. I was touring with a band at the time, and it was time to go meet her father for the very first time. And I remember going to meet the dad and being so nervous that like, I got to like impress this guy. Like I'm going to meet the dad. And I remember I come from very humble beginnings, again, in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
And I remember pulling up to his neighborhood and just seeing like these huge houses and a gated community and long driveways filled with like German cars. I was like, what the hell does your dad do for a living? Like expecting the cliche answer, of these high top tier jobs that you hear about throughout life. And she goes, he's a hairstylist. I'm like, BS. I was like, there's no way he's a hairstylist. If he's a hairstylist, I'm going to have him take me to work with him so that I can see what's going on. He took me to work with him. And I had the best day of my life. I got to wear what I wanted, listen to cool music. Clients were bringing us baked goods. I made tips. It was just the best day ever. I was like, this is what I'm going to do.
So there's a music background. Is that what I understand?
Slightly. So there's a band out of Jacksonville called the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. And
So good.
I went to high school with these guys, and, the singer lived in a trailer out in Middleburg, and I wasn't in the band. But I would go and watch every band practice. They were my best friends. I had nothing better to do because I wasn't at school. I was not at my job. And they eventually got signed. And I remember I was hanging out at the bass player's house with his sister at the time. And my buddy Elias, who was the guitarist at the time, calls me. He's like, Phil, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm at Joey's in the backyard. What's going on? He's like, we just got the van and the trailer. They were leaving to go on their first tour. It was with a band called 30 Seconds to Mars. It was like a 31-day tour.
Yes.
Yeah. He was like, go home and pack a backpack. We're going to be at your house in 5 minutes. And so I went home. I threw my clothes in a backpack. I didn't come back for 3 years. And I met Jewel at a show at the House of Blues in New Orleans back in 2007. And that's how we met.
I love the fact, just finding out that we're from the same town, humble beginnings. Our house was built on what used to be a dump. And so I know what humble beginnings look like. So from Jacksonville to Nolans, right? You went from one of my favorite cities to one of my favorite cities to one of my favorite cities. So Jacksonville, New Orleans, and then Nash Vegas. Give me the journey here, because you went from apprentice to salon owner to like kind of on the radar to I'm a brand now.
Growing up, I did not like school. It wasn't for me. I dropped out of high school in 11th grade, and I had just been told my whole life, like I couldn't adapt. I couldn't stay focused, that I wasn't, where I was supposed to be. And so eventually I just developed that mentality and accepted it and was like, all right, well, I'm just going to be a rebel. I'm going to drop out. I'm going to hang out with my friends. I'm going to get an oddball job just enough to pay, for an old truck and for fast food. And I couldn't even hold those down. My truck got repoed. My friends were still spotting me. And when I came across the hair thing, it was the very first thing that finally excited me for the first time ever. Because I was like an emo kid back in the day. I had the long swoop and it was chopped up. So I would cut my hair by myself. And the more jacked up it was, like the more emo and the better it looked. And so friends slowly started to ask me. And then when I met her dad and he had this lavish lifestyle and he was such an admirable man, I was like, this is what I want to do. So I came to New Orleans and I knocked on every single salon door in the city that I possibly could. Of course, I took recommendations from Jewel and her father, but I knocked on everybody's door. I was like, hey, I don't do hair. I have no background, but like, will you please apprentice me? Will you please like mentor me? And everybody was like, no. Like, thanks for checking in. Stop by again later, like whatever. And one of the guys eventually called me back and he's like, hey, are you still interested? And I was like, heck yeah. And it was actually like my first choice. So I felt very like lucky in that sense. And he taught me so much. I wish I could go back and relive those days because I would have like really taken it even more serious, but he gave me such like a good foundation of like what's important. And I'm just super thankful for that.
So, educator and then simultaneously salon owner, okay? And not just anywhere in Nashville, not just in Nashville, but on Music Row. And then dad, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's got to be stressful. Like, how do you maintain that, put it together?
Well, I think there's a difference between good stress and bad stress. I think all the things that I do are good stresses because I enjoy them so heavily. And so when I look at how I balance things, it's things I choose to balance. And because I love them so much, I make them work in a way to where I can still fully enjoy them. And if the day ever comes that I'm not enjoying it in the way that I am, I would reassess. But when I'm educating, it's full time. That dial's on educator. When I'm home with the family, it's on full time family. When I'm in the salon, same thing, and so on and so forth. So I think I've subconsciously become good at like compartmentalizing each and every one of those and putting myself into each one fully instead of trying to spread myself thin constantly.
I just imagine it's easier having the wife as part of the team, running the family business. I mean, and not having another day job.
Yeah, if it weren't for my wife, to be completely honest, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. And I've learned that through working with so many smart people that are better at what I do, they're all like, you need to work with people that you can delegate responsibilities to and find people that are better than you in the areas that you're weaker in. And she's strong in all my weak areas.
And I love that. Gotta have a team. Gotta have
Yeah.
a team. So never been blessed to have a celebrity. I just imagine that that's got to kind of be part of what's going on up in Nashville Music Row. Does anything change in terms of working with somebody that could be A-list, country music? I mean,
Sure. I personally have never been hyper focused on being labeled or considered a celebrity hairstylist. I'm somebody that really enjoys my freedom and flexibility, and I don't want to be on call. And while I wish them the best, and I know they're going to be in fantastic hands because I have the luxury of working with a lot of people that take care of a lot of those people, we're definitely wired a bit differently. And so I kind of leave that to the people that are more suited for it than me mentally.
I feel like I know the answer to this, but I want to hear from your mouth why the giving back is so important. And tell me what it's done for your career to this point.
I think initially, when I got into hair, I saw it as a great way to become financially successful. And so that was like my initial draw to the industry. But I realized that I could only take so many clients in a week. I could only spread myself so thin throughout a week. And I ran across a couple situations and opportunities that led me to educating. And for that very first time, I realized that that is a void that I can never truly fill. Giving and inspiring and motivating and helping and connecting with people and growing this community is something I can do for the rest of my life. So I feel no greater joy. There's not a paycheck in the world that compares to the feeling that I get when somebody says, you know what, I wasn't going to do this, but because of you, I did, and my life has bettered because of it.
We spoke before we got started, and we share a mentor in Sam Villa,
Yeah.
truly an artist, an educator's educator. What's he done for you in your career? And do you aspire to be that to somebody else at some point in time?
Yeah, absolutely. Sam is funny story. When I first was apprenticing, the guy I was working for at the time, apprenticing under, had bought tickets to a Behind the Chair show, and Behind the Chair happened to be in New Orleans the year that this was going on. And my mentor, took me to the show one of the days, and I wasn't licensed yet. I hadn't taken my first client yet, and I remember going to the hair show, being like, I wonder who I'm going to see now. Social media wasn't so much of a thing, but YouTube education existed. And there was people like Guy Tang and Sam Villa that were definitely ahead of their time in doing that. And I remember walking into that event, and the first person I saw and recognized was Sam. And I asked my boss at the time, Daniel, I said, Daniel, will you please? He goes, yes. I saw you look at him, like I saw you're jonesing for the picture. And I went and took a picture with Sam. And he was the first person that ever gave me that feeling of like one day I want to be taking a picture with somebody like this. Like I want to be him, and I don't even know him. And so now to work with him is like extremely surreal. But Sam, what I love most about Sam is he'll congratulate me on my wins, but he'll also tell me when I'm not doing the right thing. And like
Wow.
there's times where like we've been we've been in the middle of a debrief after like a show or something like that. And I saw nothing but good in it. And, Sam's able to like kind of pick apart what could be better, what opportunities did we leave on the table. I remember one time I made a comment. I was like, man, you guys are really good at like picking this stuff apart and finding the negative. Like I thought he's like, Philip, like, don't ever say that again. He's like, when somebody, we need to realize where we could create opportunities for a bigger, brighter future, not only for yourself, but for the people that are coming to see you. He texted me the other day, 2 days ago, when I was on my way back from a flight. And he's like, Philip, I'm proud of you for reinventing yourself. You need to continue to reinvent yourself. Just like the seasons change and the leaves change colors, we need to change ourselves to stay relevant in this industry. And I'm proud of you. Everything he tells me resonates with me so hard and deeply that I only aspire to have half the impact he's had on me on other people.
I love it.
Yeah.
Go back and feel the same way.
Yeah.
How has he shaped the creative process?
I think sometimes, just to go to the very beginning, like I suffer from imposter syndrome because I didn't have any real formal training. Like I didn't go to school. I never traveled to learn how to do things a certain way. I strictly learned through trial and error and looking at the people around me that inspired me and getting bits and pieces from them and kind of putting it in my arsenal and trying to develop something that made sense and looked good. But I put such a high level of pressure on myself because the last thing I ever would want to do is make somebody feel worse than they did when they walked in. Right? My goal is exactly the opposite. I want you to leave feeling better than when you walked in. And my whole thing is I don't necessarily sell a service, I sell a feeling. Because I can give you fantastic highlights or I can give you a great cut or a blow dry, but how did you truly feel about yourself internally when you left, not just about your hair on top of your head, right? So I just really think about how can I touch this person? How can I make this person feel seen and deliver a good product to them to where I truly make an everlasting impact on them? Because I think that people's highlights grow out and their haircuts grow out and colors fade, but what lasts is how we make them feel. So my creative process is like, how do I tap into my most genuine self so that this person mirrors that and we can have a genuine connection and then create a good product?
We're trying to make people the best versions of themselves. And so I've been talking about this year specifically, like you said, tapping that creative process to give clients the confidence that they need to go and be a better them. Do you have a success story?
Yeah. I mean, without getting emotional, it's definitely one of my clients who was losing her hair. And I helped her out in a way that made her feel like herself again. Um, that was definitely something that'll stick with me. But I think we make impacts on people all the time, but not everybody's going to turn around and tell us about them all the time. Another, story that is a little bit more uplifting is I'll never forget when I had my client Kat Howard sit in my chair for the first time, and I did her hair, and she stood up and she goes, "Man, my hair looks expensive." And I said, "I freaking love that. I'm gonna do expensive hair for the rest of my life." So yeah,
Appreciate the transparency.
yeah, man.
We wear more than one hat, right? And the
Not me,
salon,
but yes.
yeah,
No, I'm joking.
I wear one, but they don't have one big enough for my head. You're, sometimes in the salon, you're a mentor, you're educator, but then to the client, sometimes we're a therapist,
Oh yeah,
right? Sometimes we're a doctor. And I really appreciate the way that we can touch people's lives because they're there to open up. How do you feel about having to be sometimes the beacon of light in that person's life
I
at the
love it,
darkest
man.
point?
I live for it, and I hope that when I'm not here anymore, that's how I'm remembered because that's what I always wanted. So I try to be for people the thing that I wish I had or that I want. So it's my grand pleasure to be a beacon of light or your therapist or a shoulder to cry on or somebody to talk to or unleash on like, let's go, baby. Like I'm built for it.
I like that. If you look on someone's tombstone, there's an beginning date, there's an ending date,
Yeah.
and in the middle, there's a dash.
Yeah.
And I want people to remember my dash.
100%.
What has been a brand ambassador for Redken done for you, like from a career standpoint? And how do you see it manifesting itself moving forward?
I think that it has done so much for me and probably more than I know at this point in my life. There will things I'll probably notice in 10 years from now that Redken has done for me that I'm experiencing right now. But it has just developed me mentally as a professional, it has helped me reach more people, which is my ultimate goal. Forever grateful for that. But just the level of professionalism, like I never had that person in my life to help mold me into the person that I felt like I wanted to be. But Redken has been that for me. I'm a firm believer that we are who we surround ourselves with, or that if you're the best in the room, you're in the wrong room. I have so much to learn from everybody. I'm so inspired by everybody. Every show and every class helps evolve me. They are responsible for the person that I'm becoming.
Tell me about Symposium. I've never seen anything like Symposium. Like I walked into Symposium in Orlando and I didn't know if I was at a party at the club or if I was there to learn. You know what I mean? Like it was just fire everywhere. And I mean, I just kind of want to hear about like a little BTS, if you will, for Symposium.
Dude, Symposium's the best show. I've been to quite a few. I have some that I haven't been to yet, but in comparison to what I've experienced, Symposium, for me, it's all about the energy. Symposium brings the house down. And I believe that it's because everybody's there for the love of one brand, one idea, and one culture, versus some of these other shows are extremely diverse and they all have different beliefs and cultures and whatnot. But Symposium, everybody's there because we love Redken.
Yeah.
I'm Redken ready. Let's go. So you can speak to everybody without having met them and have a common language and understanding. You already share something in common with every single person under that roof, and stepping out onto those stages is second to none. And then the conversations that happen afterwards with the people that attend are as well second to none.
Sam talks about constantly reinventing. We've got to reinvent. And so do they allow you on the input on where the show could go and like what we could do next year?
They do. And in fact, I think that's where I am personally in my journey, is thinking of ways that I know I want to reinvent, how I want to reinvent myself. And in a short answer, it's theatrically. Because I think, look, there's only so many ways to weave and tease. There's only so many ways to lay out these patterns and these shapes and do certain things. And I think there's such a plethora of information due to social media, which is great. But how do we spice it up again? And Sam's, again, somebody who's really taught me like the theatrics in which you present information makes a bigger, more everlasting impression. So when I go in, they give me the full opportunity to do like a show flow and how I want to do my model, what I'm going to be presenting, what I want to share is left up to me. I got to stick within a few guidelines, but that's working with a brand. And I take advantage of it to an extent, but not nearly as much as I could. So that's what I'm really excited about for 2025.
I wanted to kind of circle back around. You mentioned social media. We all have an amazing opportunity at a relatively low cost. But what are your
I
thoughts?
think that's one of the most beautiful things about our industry is like literally there's no cap, there's no ceiling in terms of what we could do. I think ultimately I want to be a motivational speaker and an author. And all those things are being put into place, but those are just more ways that I can reach people. Social media is such an incredibly powerful, pretty free tool. And everybody has their own views on it, and to each their own. I'm not going to force anything down your throat, but I can tell you how it's worked for me and how I believe it can work for you as well.
Where are you in 5 years?
Definitely motivating, even a little bit more so. Maybe life coaching, definitely bigger stages, bigger crowds, and hopefully have my book done.
You're working on the book now.
Sure.
What was your starting point for the book?
You know, Jewel and I we'll go to a sushi restaurant and we'll get some sushi and we'll get some sake and we'll just open up our notes and we'll start flowing. I think that for every book that's ever been inspired by me, it's information that I'm excited to learn by people that I feel like I can relate to. I feel like I have some pretty exciting information to give because some people have validated that for me. And I come from a place I think a lot of people can relate to. And so if I can come up with a creative, interesting way to display that and get people on board and help people further and spread the message further and potentially grow the brand further, then that's exactly what I want to do.
Where does the passion come from for the drip? I mean, it's you're pulling off a look, it's genuine. And so, I mean, I've got to ask because I've been pelted now for a couple of weeks. And that's part of the industry, right?
Sure,
I mean, you
sure.
can't get up there with like a pocket protector and a bow tie and be taken serious.
Correct. I mean, initially, I think prior to meeting my wife, I was totally okay in a white Hanes t-shirt, ripped Levi jeans, and a pair of flip-flops. Meeting her and her family, who definitely had a more elevated lifestyle and like designer stuff or like just fashion or a sense of fashion at all. I was like definitely inspired by that. And whenever I get inspired by something, I like love to like, I become obsessed with it. And so, but then, I learned along the way too, especially when trying to grow myself, to dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So I went to work a lot of times looking like I'd been doing hair for 20 years, but I hadn't taken my first client yet. So I tried to study what that looked like. And so I took templates that already existed. And then I think I just kind of like flew off the cusp with that and eventually turned it into my own until I truly found myself. It took me a while to find myself in my own style. And to be honest, it evolves frequently, as do I.
You've mentioned Jules' family a few times. Tell me about the relationship with your father-in-law and how it's evolved.
Loved my dad dearly, but he was at work my whole life, and like by the time he got home, he was stressed out and he was tired and X, Y, and Z. But her dad was the first person that really had some like valuable information and insight in life. And even to this day, he still is the king. No matter what I do or what I accomplish, like I put him on the pedestal because this isn't about a dollar amount. This isn't about a status amount. It's like you're a man that I look up to as a family man, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a mentor in all aspects. So I keep him there and he will always remain there. But he has been tremendously impactful to the way I think in terms of what's possible and how to have a good time doing it. Him and I have a really good time together.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the genuine passion, the transparency. This has been as much fun as I've had in, I don't know, 30 minutes in my life.
Let's
So
go.
I hope we can do this again. And so appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I
So
appreciate you.
thank you. Thank you.